Hey guys, tonight we're starting something a little different. You're not in your room anymore? Not really. You're walking a narrow path into a mountain valley. Few people remember, and even fewer have ever dared to visit. The air is cooler. Here thin and damp, like it's been sleeping too long and just woke up without brushing its teeth. There's a smell of pine and old stone mixed with something softer, lavender, maybe, or dust stirred by memories. We're heading toward a monastery that doesn't show up on maps, unless you count the kind drawn in dreams. A place where monks believe the truest sleep was upside down. Yes, side down, like bats or tax forms. If you're thinking, wait, what? You're not alone. These monks really did believe that hanging from beams helped them get closer to enlightenment, or at least help the blood flow in funny directions. You probably wouldn't last 5 minutes. Your neck would protest, your dignity would abandon. You and your chiropractor would block your number. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now for you. I always read them while sipping lukewarm tea and pretending it's 1462. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take a slow step onto the dirt path, soft beneath your shoes. It's not muddy, just ... yielding, almost like it was expecting you. Grass bends gently at the edges and small white flowers tilt as if nodding hello. Wait. You glance behind. You've left behind the last trace of asphalt. What lies ahead is quieter. A kind of quiet that swells rather than shrinks. Fog hangs low across the hills, like a wool blanket draped by a sleepy sky. Pines line the path like sentinels, tall and disinterested. One of them has a crooked branch that looks suspiciously like it's waving. You wave back. No one's around to judge. Your breath is a slow cloud. You count 10 steps, then 15. The silence deepens. Even your thoughts seem to walk softer. Then, just as you're about to wonder if this was a terrible idea, born from too much herbal tea, you see it. The monastery not grand, not crumbling dash, just ... waiting. Built from pale stone darkened with time. Its walls are oddly smooth, like they've been sanded by centuries of wind or really picky ghosts. Moss clings in lazy streaks. The roof is steep, as if it's always ready to slide away and expose the secrets underneath. But what catches your eye most is the door. There's no handle, there's no latch. Just a slab of ancient wood with a worn circle at chest height, where countless palms must have rested before you. You place your hand there, and for a second, nothing happens. Then a click, not loud, just sure. The door opens inward a sliver. You push gently. It's lighter than expected. Inside, the air is thick, but not stale. It smells of beeswax, cold stone, and something strangely familiar like old library books after a thunderstorm. You take a tentative step in. Floor is made of uneven tiles. Each one a slightly different shade of brown and gray. It's like they couldn't quite agree on a uniform. To your left, a candle flickers beside a niche in the wall. A scroll rests there, partly unfurled. On it, an inked diagram, a figure hanging upside down by the ankles, serene as a cloud. You lean closer. Footsteps soft, sandaled, deliberate. You turn. A monk stands in the hallway, neither young nor ancient. His face a calm ocean of wrinkles and quiet eyes. His robe is a muted gray, tied with fraying red string. But the real surprise? His sandals bright red, so red they practically hum against the gray stone. Like someone invited a party to a funeral. He doesn't speak, just studies you, then tilts. His head once, and beckons with a nod. You follow. The corridor curves slowly, like the inside of a snail shell. You're half expecting to see more scrolls, or maybe an altar. Instead, he stops beside a wooden bench and gestures for you to sit. A moment passes. Then, in a voice that sounds like it's been brewed in warm tea, he says, "Not many find their way here anymore. Fewer stay. Fewer still, return unchanged." You blink. It's vague enough to be either very deep or just the opening line of A really confusing bedtime story. He smiles faintly, as if hearing your thoughts. We sleep differently here. Not just to rest, to remember. He lifts a small bell from a shelf and rings it once. The sound is high and clear, and as it fades, something strange happens. You feel your shoulders relax. Your feet feel heavier. Your head lighter. You ask, finally, why the sandals are red. He chuckles softly, so we don't forget our feet. When you sleep like we do, it's easy to forget which way is down. You don't know if he's joking. Probably, maybe. You ask if you can stay. He studies you for a long moment, then nods. Then your path begins now. The door with no handle only opens once for the same person. You're unsure if that's poetic, literal, or just his way of saying no refunds. He hands you a cloth pouch tied with twine. Inside, a slip of paper with a single word written on it, in versio. You don't ask what it means. You're starting to get the idea. The monk stands. His sandals squeak slightly. Follow me, he says. It's time to read, just like that. You're on your feet, walking deeper into the monastery. The air behind you folding closed like a chapter finished. Not a single part of you is sleepy, yet somehow you've never felt closer to sleep. The corridor is narrow in the way that makes you walk slightly sideways, like you're trying not to bump into an X at a crowded market. Your shoulder brushes cool stone, and your fingers trail the wall where carvings hide beneath. Layers of age, not religious symbols, not quite, more like spirals and loops and curling scripts that almost resemble musical notes. But the melody, if it exists, is long forgotten. The monk walks ahead, silent, his red sandals padding against the tile with the calm of someone who never needs to rush. His robe sways like a whisper. You follow, carefully. One wrong step and you feel like the monastery might sigh disapprovingly. The hallway ends at a door. No, handle again. Of course, you squint at its similar wood, smoother here. The same worn circle in the center. The monk gestures for you to try. You place your palm on the mark. It's warm. Nothing happens. You press harder. Still nothing. The monk chuckles. It's dry but not unkind. This one opens differently, he says. It remembers pressure and pause. You try again. This time you press gently, then stop moving. You just breathe. And breathe again. Click the door size inward, revealing a circular chamber lit by hanging lampswell, more like floating. Flames, no cords, no wax, just soft orbs of fire suspended midair, like they never quite got the memo about gravity. Scrolls line the walls, stored in little square compartments made of polished cedar. Some compartments are labeled with symbols, others are blank. A ladder leans against one shelf, though the room is only a single story high. Get the impression the ladder's there more for ritual than function. At the center of the chamber, a circular table, 12 cushions surround it. The scriptorium, the monk says. Our quietest room. You look around. Quieter than that hallway? You asked. He raises a brow. That hallway hums with memory. This room forgets. A second monk enters staller, robed in the same gray. His expression is serene, though his eyebrows are impressively dramatic. They arch like they're reacting to something mildly offensive. At all times, he nods at you, then sits cross-legged on one of the cushions. From his sleeve, he produces a scroll and begins to read, not aloud, but silently, eyes scanning back and forth. He reads the old entries. The first monk says, "You'll read the ones yet written." That makes no sense, of course. But you've given up expecting sense from this place. Its logic here feels more like a suggestion than a rule. The monk gestures you toward the table. You sit on a cushion. It sighs beneath you like it's exhausted by all this mortal contact. He places a scroll before you. The parchment is soft, textured, slightly yellowed. But the strange part, there's already writing on it. Your handwriting, you don't remember writing it. Your name is at the top. You blink. How the door with no handle, the monk interrupts gently, leads not just to a room, leads to what you've already begun. You read the first few lines. They're familiar, almost hauntingly so. It's the dream you had as a child, floating above your bed, turning slowly in the air. While people below whispered in languages you'd never heard but somehow understood, you've never told anyone that dream. How is this possible, you whisper? The monk only smiles. Most people think dreams vanish. Here we believe they pile up. Scrolls are where they gather. He opens another drawer. More scrolls, some thick, some brittle. One tied with a ribbon shaped like a snake, biting its own tail. These, he says, belong to those who left. Some left by foot, some by forgetting. You ask what happens if you read your scroll all the way to the end. He looks at you, expression suddenly unreadable. You'll know where your feet are, he says, and what direction they're truly pointing. You don't know whether to be enlightened or vaguely threatened. He stands and nods toward the scroll. Begin. You unroll a few more lines. The scene shifts, still your dream, but distorted. The people below are now monks, suspended from beams by soft cloth. They sway gently, like leaves on invisible branches. One of them opens their eyes and looks straight up at you. You see yourself reflected in their gaze. The scroll continues. Now the dream bleeds into waking. Your walk here, the door, the sandals. The scroll writes itself as you remember. No, not remember. Witness. The writing. Is your breath, the monk murmurs from the doorway. Your attention is the ink. You keep reading. Time folds. You lose track of minutes. It's maybe hours. Outside, the monastery remains still. Even the fog seems to be holding its breath. When you finally stop, your fingers are tingling. You look up. The monk is gone. The other reader still sits across the table. Eyes closed now, scroll curled against his chest like a cat. You stand slowly. The floor feels curved, though it looks flat. The door still no handle opens by itself. You step out. The hallway feels different now, wider. Or maybe you've shrunk slightly in the best possible way. And in your pocket, somehow the scroll has folded itself into a neat square. You didn't place it there, but you're not surprised. This is only the second door. The next one might open backward, or inward, or not at all. Either way, you keep walking, and the monastery listens. The hallway stretches on like a forgotten thought, looping inward in subtle spirals. It's the kind of place you could wander for years and still feel like you're only slightly off-center from where you started. The stone walls begin to change smoother. Here, etched not with ancient writing, but with hundreds of faint handprints, small, large, smudged, some pressed in paint, others mere oils of time. They follow you like a silent audience, as if everyone who passed before needed to touch the world. Just once before letting go, you round a corner. He's there again, the monk with the red sandals, standing in the middle of the corridor, arms crossed. Gaze serene, but there's a flicker of amusement in his eyes, like he knew exactly how long it would take you to get lost before finding him again. You read well, he says. It's unclear if he means speed or comprehension or some third quality. Monks like to measure like internal humidity or soul. Wattage. You say, thank you, automatically. But now we begin the part that doesn't involve reading, he adds. He turns and gestures for you to follow. You do. Of course. The rhythm of his red sandals against the floor becomes oddly soothing. They slap with quiet confidence, like someone who's never stubbed a toe on furniture. You find yourself staring at them too long. They don't match anything else he's wearing. Not the muted robe, not the quiet halls. And yet they feel right, necessary. As you walk, he starts speaking. These halls were not always quiet. Centuries ago, they echoed with questions. Too many. Loud ones. About purpose, about power, about who gets the last slice of enlightenment. And then one day he continues. Someone simply stopped. Speaking, they hung upside down in silence for a week. When they came down, they had no answers, just calm. He pauses at a wooden door. No handle again, but this time he doesn't touch it. He just looks at it. The door opens. Inside, a circular. Room lit only by an opening in the ceiling. Sunlight pours down like a divine spotlight, catching floating dust like fireflies mid-waltz. But what really draws your attention are the beams thick, sturdy wooden beams, arranged like the ribs of a great ship turned inside out. From each, one hangs a thick cloth loop, swaying gently in the still air. You stare. This, he says, is where we sleep. You blink. Here. Like. In here. Yes. Though not quite yet. You're not ready. You watch the loops. They're not ropes. Not quite. They look soft but firm, like the straps of a hammock designed by a philosopher. You wonder what kind of insurance policy this place has. Why upside down? You asked. He smiles, but doesn't answer. Instead, he walks to the center of the room and crouches then. With a surprising amount of grace for someone who probably has arthritis in at least 4 dimensions, he flips backward and hooks his legs through one of the loops. Now he's hanging. Robe folding over his chest like a waterfall, arms crossed over his stomach. Red sandals just touching the beam, he looks at peace. A little ridiculous, but also peaceful. We believe the world is already upside down, he says. Hanging this way is just agreeing with it. You stare. That's either incredibly wise or mildly passive-aggressive. The line is thin, he replies. We walk it nightly. Swings slightly. The motion is hypnotic. Began as a punishment, he continues. Long ago, one monk fell asleep during meditation and toppled into a basket of figs. The abbot, displeased, told him to sleep upside down until he learned balance. What happened, you ask? He never came down? Did he die? He reached enlightenment, which in his case meant perfect napping posture and a lifelong immunity to neck pain. You can't tell if he's joking. You might not know either. But seriously, he says, growing quieter, hanging reminds us that surrender is not the same as weakness. Letting go is a skill. The room is silent again. The beams above creak gently. You hear your own heartbeat slowing. The monk gestures to one of the loops. Want to try? You hesitate. Your spine does not sign off on this decision, but curiosity overrules discomfort. You approach, slip your legs into the cloth like you're putting on trousers designed by an acrobat, and lean back. You are. Upside down, the blood rushes to your head. Your hands dangle. Your thoughts swirl. And yet, you feel something strange. Not fear, not dizziness, just quiet. Your toes wiggle in your boots, unsure if they've been demoted or promoted. The monk swings gently beside you. The world sounds different like this, he murmurs. It's more distant, less judgmental. You agree, even if only to fill the silence? I think I hear the floor whispering. It often does. You'll know. It complains about dust. Try not to laugh. Your body is busy trying to decide if this is sleep or existential yoga. But there's something else. Something warm and spreading in your chest. Maybe it's calm. Maybe it's just blood pooling creatively. Either way, you don't hate it. You hang like that for minutes. Maybe more. You don't dream. But for a brief moment, you stop needing to. When you finally come down, the monk helps you back to your feet. Your hair sticks up in awkward directions. He says nothing. Respectful. Tonight, he says, you'll return here. Not to learn. Just to be. He exits the room first. You follow slower this time. Legs jelly-like. Thoughts soft as bread. At the doorway, you glance back. The loops sway, as if waving goodbye. Or hello. You're not sure which direction you're moving anymore. And maybe that's the point. The hallway darkens as you follow him. But not in a frightening way, more like a gentle dimming, as though the monastery is helping your eyes prepare for something softer. Each step feels quieter than the last. The air here is cooler, tinged, with the faintest scent of beeswax and something earthy like pressed flowers trapped in old books. You pass by tall wooden doors, none with handles, none labeled, just aged wood and silence. Eventually, the corridor opens into a narrow chamber, lit entirely by candles, not just a few hundreds. They line the walls, the floor, the shelves, even float in hanging iron rings above you. Their flames sway with the air you carry in size of light, warm and constant. At the center sits a long wooden table, smoothed by time and touch. Its surface is scarred in the way that means something, a scratch here from a dropped stylus. A burn mark there from an impatient monk with too much sleeve and not enough awareness. The red-sandaled monk gestures for you to sit. This is the scriptorium, he says. But not the one you think you saw earlier. That one was for memory. This one is for invention. You sit cautiously. The bench creaks, welcoming your awkwardness. He places a scroll in front of you fresh, unmarked. Then beside it, he places a small inkwell and a pen made of reed. The nib is wide, flat, like it expects thoughts with gravity. Tonight you'll write what hasn't happened yet. You look at him incredulous. You mean imagine something? No, he says. Write what will happen, not what you want, not what you fear. It's just what you see when you close your eyes and let the ink know before you do. That clears absolutely nothing up, but somehow it makes sense. At least here, in this place where sandals are red, sleep is vertical, and time acts more like a lake than a road. He steps back, leaves you alone. You pick up the reed pen. It's heavier than expected, balanced, waiting. You stare at the scroll. Blankness. Stares back, you close your eyes, and something shifts. The monastery fades just a little. Not gonna softer. You feel the air around you tremble, the way air does before thunder, or before someone says something true. Images begin to surface. A room. A group of monks swinging gently in unison like wind chimes made. Of people. Below them, sand patterns on the floor shift slightly with each breath they take, forming spirals that look like galaxies mid-conversation. A voice speaks not aloud, but in that bone-deep way dreams sometimes do, even bats land. When no one is watching, you begin to write. The words come slowly, like honey resisting the spoon. You don't know if it's fiction, or memory, or foresight. You don't even know if the handwriting belongs entirely to you. But it doesn't feel wrong. The first line reads, "On the third night, the ceiling whispered back." You stop. Blink, the ink shimmers slightly, then dries. You continue. You write about a corridor that loops in on itself until it arrives at your own thoughts. You write about a monk who never blinked during meditation and began seeing ghosts of conversations instead of people. You write about a bell so soft it could only be heard while asleep. As the scroll fills, you forget what the beginning said, but that's okay. The story is not for rereading. It's for being in. A soft clink pulls your attention. Another monk, one you haven't seen yet, sits down. It's a small cup of something warm beside you. He nods once, doesn't speak, disappears. You sip. The tea tastes like thyme and dusk. You wonder, if it ever had a name? The candles flicker, and in their dancing glow, now the shadows along the walls seem to bow slightly toward the scroll. You wonder if they're reading it too. You pause. Your hand aches, but in the pleasant way, like it's been useful. Your thoughts feel quieter, as if the words bled not only onto the page, but out of you entirely. You look at what you've written. It's nonsense. Beautiful, spiraling nonsense. But it feels right. The monk returns. You wrote enough, he says gently. We never finish. We only pause. You nod. He takes the scroll and folds it in a way that should not be physically possible. It shrinks to a square, then a sliver, then a bead, which he drops into a small. Vial and cork shut. We keep them, he explains, in case the words ever forget where they came from. You rise, legs tingling. He hands you a small candle from the wall, just one, and it immediately dims to half brightness in your palm, as if adjusting to your pulse. The next room, he says, requires less sight and more listening. Follow him again. The candle leads the way. It's not you. And as you step back into the corridor, feel the ink still lingering on your fingertips, like a whisper that never quite wanted to leave. The corridor slopes downward now. You hadn't noticed it at first, but your steps begin to feel slightly longer, like gravity is pulling you somewhere on purpose. The air thickens, not with weight, but with intent. It's the kind of feeling you get when you walk into a room where people have just stopped talking. Can't hear what was said, but the echo of it still floats. Your candle barely flickers. It's no longer lighting the way, it's more like a permission slip for the shadows. The red-sandaled monk walks ahead, one hand behind his back, the other holding something you can't quite see. His robe rustles just slightly, a sound like parchment turning pages in the dark. Most people think gravity pulls, he says softly, not turning around. But in truth, teaches. You squint. Teaches what? He glances back, amused. How not to fight. The hallway widens and opens into a circular room again. This monastery has more circles than your average philosophy undergrad's final essay. But this one's different. There are no beams, no scrolls, just a smooth floor of polished stone with a strange spiral engraved into its surface. It begins at the edge and winds inward like a snail's shell, ending in a small round depression in the center, like a bowl pressed into the earth. Around the edges of the room, slings hang from metal arms that curve from the walls. There. Not hammocks, not chairs, more like cloth cocoons held midair, just enough to cradle a person without letting them touch the ground. Some are empty, some. You see a pair of bare feet sticking out of one, toes pointed down, heels still. A faint snore drifts from another sling, so delicate it almost sounds rehearsed. The monk gestures you to the edge of the spiral. You walk it, he says. From edge to center, slowly gravity will ask you questions. Your body will answer. Them, you eye the spiral path. It doesn't look that long. He steps aside. One rule, he adds. You may not walk straight to the middle. You must follow the line. Of course, you take your first step onto the path. The floor is warm, unexpected. As you walk the first curve, your candle dims further. The stone glows faintly, just enough to trace the next step. You keep going. With each loop you feel heavier, but not in a bad way. Not like you're tired, or like your body is becoming extremely aware of itself. Your arms hang looser. Your breathing slows. Your knees soften. Thoughts drift in and out. Why are monk chairs so much cooler than regular chairs? What if gravity is just the earth hugging too tight? Am I technically upside down right now, emotionally? You chuckle. Quietly, it echoes. And then, without realizing it, you're at the center. The small depression in the floor cradles your foot. Perfectly, like it was shaped around you long before you arrived. You stand still. The room listens. Then the monk steps beside you, carrying two small sandbags, no larger than pillows. He gently places one in each of your hands. Heavier now, he asks. You nod. Good. That means you're closer to stillness. Leads you to one of the slings. You climb in, awkwardly like a butterfly, forgetting how to cocoon. It envelops you. The fabric stretches gently, supporting you in all the strange places you didn't know needed support, like the spot behind your shoulder blades, or your soles. Favorite elbow. You let the sandbags rest on your chest. They're warm. Your legs hang slightly. You sway. And then, stillness. Not sleep. Not yet. But something better. A pause. A breath in the middle of a longer breath. The ancient texts, the monk whispers beside you, call this posture inversio, humana not, for the body's position, but for the priority of things. We believe that when the heart rests higher than the head, it remembers more. You. Blink slowly. What if I fall asleep and gravity is doing its job? Your sling rocks slightly. You see the spiral on the floor from above. Now like looking into a whirlpool made of time. You feel your limbs grow heavier. Your mind lighter. And somewhere far off you think you hear someone humming. It's soft. It's a lullaby with no words, just gravity and warmth. And as your eyes drift shut, the last thought that floats by is this. Maybe the world wouldn't be so stressful if more people just hung upside down for a while. The monk places a hand gently on the sling, stilling its motion. Rest now, he murmurs. Tomorrow, you will see the chapel of hooks. But tonight gravity will sing to you. And with that, he walks away. Your breath slows. The stone spiral. Below blurs, and you float suspended between wake and sleep. It's right side up in a world that no longer cares about such things. You wake slowly, not to an alarm or a sunrise, but to the soft realization that your sling has stopped swaying.
Ow.
You don't know how long you slept. Maybe an hour. Maybe 100 years in dream math. Aye. What you do know is that your body feels like it finally found the pause button it didn't know it needed. Not refreshed, exactly more. Unburdened. Like gravity picked through your pockets and left only the important parts. You climb out of the sling carefully. Your feet are reluctant, like children being asked to leave a warm bath. But the stone beneath you welcomes them, cool, smooth, certain. The red-sandaled monk is waiting naturally. If he doesn't ask how you slept, he doesn't have to. Your hair answers the question for him, sticking out in several creative directions, each one radiating the energy of, I have deeply, deeply relaxed. He nods. Good, he says.
Ow!
You're ready to see the chapel?
Dot!
Of not a phrase. It's not a phrase that inspires immediate confidence. But at this point, you're committed. Besides, you've already hung upside down once and survived. That should count for something. You follow him back down the winding corridor. The hallway seems brighter now, or perhaps you're just noticing more. You pass a small alcove, where someone has stacked flat stones in a perfect spiral, each one no larger than a skipping stone. On the wall beside it, a tiny sign reads, Balance begins in boredom. You make a mental note to quote that the next time someone complains during a long meeting, the monk stops at a large set of double doors. Again, no handles. He simply raises his hand and waits. After a moment, the doors open inward slowly, like they're inhaling. You step inside and immediately feel the air change. It's cooler here still, not dead just. Reverent. The room is vast. The ceiling vanishes into shadow, and from it descend hundreds of iron hooks. They hang from beams in long, straight rows, each hook paired with a thick loop of cloth. It's like a forest of upside-down silence. No candles, no chairs, no altar. Just the sound of occasional breath and the faint creak of suspended cloth. Shifting, there are monks hanging already, dozens of them, each swaying gently, robes pulled by gravity into strange, fluttering shapes. Some have their arms folded, some are reading scrolls held upside down. One is knitting, the yarn ball tied to his ankle for balance. None of them speak. None of them look at you. You whisper without meaning to. They look like the bats. The monk smiles. Yes, that's the idea. He leads you down the center aisle, passing rows of suspended monks. You catch glimpses of their faces, peaceful, focused, occasionally snoring. One murmurs something in his sleep that sounds suspiciously like more marmalade. You choose not to judge. At the far end of the chapel, there is one empty hook. He stops beneath it and gestures. This one is for you. You look up. You want me to hang in here with them? You already have, he says, which is not comforting, but also weirdly not wrong. You step into the cloth loop. It's firmer. Then the last one, more ceremonial. As you hook your knees and ease backward, the monk steps aside and gives the sling a gentle push. You begin to sway. Up here, the world flips quickly. You see the rows of monks above or below. The floor seems far away, the ceiling closer. Than expected. The silence grows louder. And then, something changes. You start to hear it. Not sound exactly. More like ... hums. Tiny vibrations. Each monk, as they sway, generates a frequency. Individually soft. Together, a low, resonant drone. Not dissonant, not musical either. Something in between. This, the monk says softly, is the collective breath of surrender. Some call it prayer, others just call it good posture. You ask also softly how long they stay like this, until the mind stops arguing with the body. He says, some take an hour, some take a lifetime. Swinging steadies. Your vision adjusts. The upside-down world begins to make sense in new ways. The hooks above you are not perfect. Each has a small imperfection rust, a nick, a dent like they've been chosen for that reason. As if to remind you that holding still doesn't require perfection, only presence. You close your eyes. There's something comforting in not knowing. What part of you is highest anymore? You feel your thoughts slide downward, or maybe upward. Direction is irrelevant, and in that strange, suspended silence, you feel perhaps for the first time what it means to be held without being fixed. That chapel breathes, so do you, and for now that is enough. You don't remember falling asleep, which, as it turns out, is the best kind of sleep, no clocks. No worries, no dreams about missing your high school finals and only your socks. Just a gentle unknowing, the kind of rest that feels like pressing. Pause on gravity's complaints. You wake to the faint sound of rustling cloth. The chapel of hooks is dimmer now. The candles, yes. Apparently there were candles have melted into shallow pools of wax along the walls, flickering like tired eyes. A few monks are still hanging, but many are gone. The silence is no less thick. It hums around you like a heavy robe. You slowly unhook your legs, wiggling your toes to remind them who's in charge. When you land, it's softer than expected like. The floor caught you out of courtesy. The red-sandaled monk is waiting again. No surprise there. This time he holds something small in his hand. A silver token shaped like a bat with outstretched wings. It's not menacing. More content? You take it. What is this? You ask. A sign, he replies. You're no longer just a visitor. He starts walking again. You follow, pocketing the token. It's warm. You reach a new hallway. This one narrower, walls painted in long vertical strokes that seem to stretch upward forever. Or downward. Hard to tell anymore. The monk pauses beside a wooden panel. He presses on a knot in the grain. The wall slides open. Inside is a chamber much smaller than any you've seen. A round space lined with cushions and scroll racks, low shelves, and tiny chairs that look like they were made for polite hobbits. The ceiling curves inward. At the center, a large painting of bats, in flight, delicate, graceful, their wings outlined in gold. This is their place. The Bat Sect, we weren't always called that, the monk says, kneeling beside a low table. Originally, we were just the Order of Tranquil Suspension, which, as you can imagine, didn't really stick. Too many syllables, you ask? Too many vowels, he replies. He picks up a scroll and hands it to you. The title is written in sharp, deliberate script, notes on the upside path. You open it. Inside are pages of quiet wisdom, gently humorous marginalia, and the occasional ink blot shaped suspiciously, like someone fell asleep mid-thought. One entry stands out. To sleep hanging is to trust not the ceiling, but the air between. You ask where the teachings came from. Not from enlightenment, he says, from embarrassment. The founder brother Elian once fell asleep meditating and tipped backward off a bench into a flower pot. The experience was so liberating he never sat upright again. So, the Bat Sect was founded by a clumsy napper? Yes. Like all great traditions, you continue reading. The text is less doctrine, more gentle encouragement, vice. Like, if you hear the floor whisper, whisper back. Don't chase silence. Let it arrive like a cat. Gravity is not your enemy. Just clingy. There are even illustrations, monks hanging from different types of beams, tree branches, ship masts, one rather daringly from a ceiling fan. You raise an eyebrow. It's not canon, the monk assures you. That one was drawn by an enthusiastic novice. We do not recommend domestic appliances. You laugh, which feels good in this space. Right-sized, real. You ask how many monks still belong to the sect? Now fewer than before, many left. Some vertically, some metaphorically. He pauses, but the sect was never about numbers. It's about permission? Permission for what? To let go? To not know? To rest in an unnatural posture until it becomes natural? Like joy or forgiveness? You feel a little dizzy, not from blood rush, but from depth. The words sit in you like stones in a pond, slow to settle. The monk stands and gestures toward a narrow alcove at the back of the chamber. Inside, a single rope hangs from the ceiling. Below it, a cushion shaped like a cloud. For your thoughts. He says, let them down gently. You step inside and sit. The rope above you sways ever so slightly. The bat-shaped token in your pocket presses into your leg, quiet, insistent. You're one of us now, the monk says from the doorway. Not by ritual, by rhythm. Rhythm, yes. He nods. You've learned the pause between hanging and falling. The moment when trust outweighs logic. You close your eyes, and for a second, a short, glorious second, you feel like you could float again. Not up, not down, Just wait. The door closes behind him without a sound. You sit in the small alcove, the cushion beneath you, surprisingly firm, like a polite boulder. The rope above sways with such subtle rhythm, it might just be responding to your breath. Or perhaps you're responding to it? At this point, who can say which direction anything is going? It's quiet. Not the kind of quiet that begs to be filled, but the kind that stretches, expands, learns your name. You hear it then faint at first, like memory whispering. From a closet you forgot to empty? A bell? Just one, high, clear, brief, then nothing. No footsteps. No chance. No pages turning. You feel it more than hear it. The shift. The monastery has entered its silence. Not symbolic silence, but not monastic quiet time. No, this is the silence rule. You remember the monk mentioning it. After the 7th hour of the waking day, all speech ceases. Not a suggestion. A law of rhythm. Practice so deeply observed, even the moths seem to flap their wings more considerately. You stand unsure if you should leave the alcove. Then again, this place has never been big on formal instruction. If something's not bolted down, it's probably walkable. You exit the chamber. The hallway greets you with the hush of velvet. You pass another monk. He nods at you. You nod back. The entire exchange feels like a full conversation between two ghosts who once knew each other in a dream. Further along, you reach a long corridor lined with open archways. Each leads to a small room, each room the same. One sling, one low table, one candle burning low. Some are empty. Some contain monks, suspended and silent, their eyes open, not in alertness, but in a kind of soft, active stillness. You want to? Say hello, but your mouth doesn't open, not out of obedience, but out of atmosphere. To speak now would be like yelling during a snowfall. Possible, but heartbreaking. Your thoughts? Turn inward? Funny how quickly silence fills up. You think of all the times you've rushed to speak. Answered questions you hadn't heard just because the air felt too still. Here you realize something uncomfortable without talking. Your thoughts get louder, but then softer, like they're learning their own volume. You enter one of the side rooms. A monk is already there, gently swaying in his sling. He doesn't look up. He's chewing something, maybe dried fig, maybe enlightenment in snack form. You sit across from him on the floor. The candle between you flickers as if in approval. You stare at the flame. You notice your breath is shallower than it needs to be. Your toes are curled for no reason. Your shoulders are pretending to hold something that isn't there. You let go, uncurl, unclench. The flame nods. The monk reaches slowly into his robe and pulls out a scroll. He unrolls it halfway and places it gently between you. On it, symbols you don't recognize, circles within circles. One small phrase in a language your bones seem to recognize before your mind does. What is spoken fades. What is kept echoes. You read it again and again. Somewhere behind you, a floorboard creaks in the most thoughtful way you've ever heard. Time here is not passing. It's stretching out beside you like a sleepy cat. You glance at the monk. He looks up for the first time and blinks once slowly. Deliberately, you blink back. A full conversation. Somewhere else in the monastery, another bell rings, lower tone. This time, it doesn't break the silence, it blesses it. You rise, and the monk raises his hand, palm outward, fingers relaxed. You return the gesture. It means something, but you don't need to know what. As you step back into the hallway, your footfalls feel heavier. It's not from effort, but from meaning. You pass no one on the way, but you feel seen by the walls, by the hooks, by the stillness. You return to your chamber, not to sleep, to be in for the first time in a long while. That's enough. The silence hums. The rope above your sling sways gently in the monastery. In its hush, welcomes your breath as part of the rhythm. It begins with steam, not loud, not sharp, just a soft hiss from somewhere in the walls, like the building itself has decided it's time for tea. You're lying in your sling again, eyes half open, the candle at your side reduced to a puddle with a flame the size of a sigh. A monk passes your doorway. He carries a tray with 2 cup-small, shallow bowls, not mugs. One is meant for you. He doesn't speak. Of course not. Silence still holds. Instead, he sets the tray gently on the table beside your sling, nods once and disappears. You sit up, slowly, like someone negotiating with their own limbs. The world spins just slightly either because your inner ear hasn't quite forgiven the whole hanging upside down thing, or because your mind is still adjusting to a place where even tea arrives like a meditation. You lift the cup. Warm. Earthy. It smells. Like grass that has recently learned how to relax. Hints of something floral, something bitter, and something completely unidentifiable. Like the color green trying to whisper a secret. You sip, and everything changes. Not dramatically. Not like lightning or inspiration. But gently you feel your breath deepen. Not on purpose. Your body just decides to do it better. Your vision softens around the edges. The candle flame seems rounder somehow, and then you notice. Movement, you step into the hallway. It's darker now, but not blind dark. The stones glow faintly with a kind of moon-colored dust. The monks are moving not many, just a few, all in slow procession toward a single direction. No footsteps echo. Just soft brushing of robes, the occasional shift of weight you follow. Of course you do. They lead you to a long chamber lined with alcoves. It's each filled with cushions and low bowls of tea. A single skylight above reveals the moon, framed perfectly. It doesn't beam down, just watches. The monks gather without forming a circle, without taking specific seats. They simply ... settle. One monk sits at the front. He holds a small bundle of herbs, wrapped in black silk. He unties it. The room fills with scent. Lavender roe, dimpong, dried fig stem, a hint of something metallic, like the inside of an old coin. Percy places the herbs into a clay bowl and lights them. The smoke rises, white and curling, never reaching the ceiling, just circling in place like it's listening. He raises a cup, sips, then breathes out slowly, one by one. The monks do the same. You follow and then you feel it, not sleep, not yet. But, dreaming, while awake, your thoughts begin to drift, but they're not random. They are curving inward, like tea leaves curling in hot water, you see. A child hanging from a tree branch, laughing upside down. A bat blinking slowly from a temple roof. A cup slowly tipping, pouring dreams into moss. A monk asleep, smiling. You open your eyes. The monk at the front begins to move not with steps, but with small gestures. He raises his hands, then lowers them. Everyone follows. Not mimicry, resonance, like shadows dancing to the shape of a flame. You lift your arms. Slowly, and in that movement, you feel. Join not as a guest, as a note in the song. They continue for a while. Tea, gestures, breath, nothing more.
Nothing.
Less no words, but meaning pulses like a quiet drum beneath every shared cup. You look around, every monk is in their own rhythm, some with eyes closed, some watching the moon. One is holding their cup with both hands, as if praying to the steam. You wonder how long this ritual has lasted. Centuries? Nights? Only this hour? You sip again. This tea doesn't make you sleepy. It makes you ready for sleep, and that's different. It's not a command. It's an invitation. Eventually, the monks begin to stand, one by one. Some bow to the moonlight. Some bow to each other. One bows to the smoke. You do too, because why not? The monk with the red sandals passes you on the way out. He doesn't stop. But as he passes, he slips something into your palm, a tea leaf still warm. You stare at it. It's folded into the shape of a bat. Naturally, you return to your room. Lie down. place. The folded leaf beside your pillow. It hums, just barely, and as your eyes close, you feel the taste of the tea still lingering on your tongue. Soft, herbal, honest, and somewhere in your bones. The memory of moving with others, wordlessly, toward peace. The silence remains, and now feels like a friend. You wake slowly, not because of noise, but because of color. Light filters into your room in ribbons, soft gold, dusky lavender, a shimmer of blue that can't possibly come from the sun. Your eyes open to a wall that wasn't colorful yesterday. It was bare, stone, quiet. Now it breathes with pattern. Many someones have painted your chamber while you slept, not over the walls, but into them. Murals bloom across the stone like dreams that finally found a surface willing to listen. Spirals, trees that grow sideways, moons stacked like teacups, and at the center, a figure that could be you curled in a sling, suspended in a sky filled with tiny hooks and flying monks. You sit up slowly, on the floor beside your sling. A piece of charcoal and a tiny bowl of crushed red pigment wait, like tools left behind by the dream that did the painting. You pick up the charcoal. Just holding it makes your fingers itch with memory, not your own. Someone else's. You step into the hallway, and now you notice it. Every wall along the corridor is painted, not with scenes of worship or glory, but with dreams. Unfiltered, unpolished, deeply personal dreams. One mural shows a monk standing on water, but the water is made of folded letters. Another depicts a tea kettle so large it shelters a village beneath its spout. A third shows a giant bat cradling a baby made of light. You feel them, not just see them. Every mural pulses with a story not quite told. You follow the path, and it leads you eventually, inevitably, to a room unlike any other so far wide. Round, lit from above, through colored glass. This is the dream hall. It echoes, but not with sound. With memory. The walls are covered, floor to ceiling, with layered murals. Not carefully arranged, not chronological. They overlap, interrupt, whisper through each other, and yet the chaos is soothing. The red-sandaled monk appears beside you, as usual. He doesn't speak at first then. We do not record our dreams. We let them record us. You ask how the paintings are made. Each morning, he says, a monk paints the part of their dream that refused to be forgotten. Why, you ask? 'Cause silence remembers, he replies. But only if you give it something to echo. He walks toward the far wall and points. There, among layers of spirals and stars, is a small painting. You recognize it instantly. It's the folded tea leaf from last night, painted in meticulous detail, the single word beneath it. Trust you. Stare. I didn't paint this, you murmur. You didn't need to, he says. The leaf remembered for you. You walk the perimeter slowly. Some paintings are abstract waves of color and shape. Others are precise. A bat lighting candles. A monk floating above a spiral staircase that leads nowhere. One shows the view from inside, a sling upside down. Toward a window where the stars fall upward. You pause at a blank section of wall. A brush. Waits in a bowl of blue pigment. Of course it does. You take it. You close your eyes. You see yourself, but not as you are. You're a shape, a breath, a posture mid-fall, mid-rest. You begin to paint, not well, not neatly, but truly. When you step back, your mural joins the others, imperfect, quiet, oddly proud. The monk nods once, then gestures to a small alcove where a candle flickers beside an empty scroll. You sit. You read, the scroll says. A dream is not a message. It's a location. You've been there. Now leave a trail back. You take the charcoal and begin to draw again, this time on paper. A-S-L-I-N-G. A. Sandal. A bat made of smoke. A teacup large. Enough to hold a wish? You lose time. Or maybe time loses you. When you look up, the colors have deepened around you. Evening is slipping in. The walls glow. The dreams hold still. And you, for the first time in forever, Feel like something inside you has been translated, not into words, into shape. You rise. You bow not to anyone, to the space. The monk watches you go. Your mural, still wet, gleams under candlelight. It says nothing and says everything. You hear them before you see them, not loud, never loud. This is still the monastery after all. But there's a hum, rhythmic creaking, gentle and methodical like a room full of rocking chairs with very strong opinions. You follow the sound, past walls now familiar with your presence, past dream murals still drying until you reach a high, narrow doorway covered by a curtain made of knotted red thread. You hesitate. The curtain sways slightly, not from wind, but from energy, conversation. You parted and step through. What you walk into is unexpected. 8 monks hang upside down in slings, suspended in a perfect circle around a candle-lit floor. Each of them holds a small bell in one hand, a folded scroll in the other. They are in the middle of a debate, a suspended debate. Literally, they swing gently as they speak well, murmurs waiting for their sling to reach the apex of its motion. Before offering a counterpoint, the bells ring occasionally, not to interrupt, but to emphasize the result. A soft, philosophical wind chime of discourse. The topic you soon gather is both timeless and ridiculous. If the soul has weight, one monk says, swaying to the left, does it drift downward in sleep or upward? Neither, says another. Mid-swing, it loops inward, like a poorly tied sandal strap. Ding. A third chimes in, not with a bell, but with laughter. We are debating the trajectory of metaphorical vapor. It's a miracle none of us have floated away with the nonsense. Ding ding, you stifle a grin. The red-sandaled monk appears beside you, sipping tea. Where he got it from, you'll never know. This is the hall of reversible thought, he says, where we test ideas while the blood rushes to our heads. Isn't that dangerous? Yes, he nods. That's what makes it honest. You sit quietly on a nearby cushion, not suspended yet. One of the monks notices you and offers a slight upside-down nod. New mind. Fresh perspective. She says, "Good. We've been arguing in circles so long, we're starting to agree." Another monk, swaying more enthusiastically than the others, raises a question. If enlightenment is weightless, why do we work so hard to carry it? A contemplative silence follows. Then someone drops their scroll. It floats down gently, spinning. Like a leaf, you pick it up. On it, a diagram of a brain inside a sling. Beneath it, the phrase, "When the body is unsure, the mind speaks louder. When the body surrenders, the mind whispers." You hand it back. The monk upside down above you offers a serene smile. That was mine. It came to me in a nap dream about a wise potato. You don't ask. You don't want to know, but you also kind of do. The red-sandaled monk leads you to a free sling. You climb in, upside down again. This time, it's familiar cozy. You sway gently. Would you like to contribute? One of the monks asks. To what? To the question, if thought is weightless, can it still bruise the heart? Think about it. You really do. You reply, only if the heart refuses to bounce. A pause, then ding. Several monks nod. One flips. Slowly, elegantly, like a leaf caught. In a kind wind, the room sways with you. There's a strange joy in debating while dangling. Your brain feels looser, livelier, less interested in proving anything, and more interested in asking well, and then comes the final question of the night. If truth hangs, is it upside down or simply waiting? No one answers. Not right away, because no one has to. Some truths don't need resolution, just enough time to swing a few more times. Eventually, one by one, the monks unhook themselves. They land lightly, stretch slowly, fold their scrolls without urgency. You do the same. On your way out, one of them whispers, "That was a good answer. The bounce thing." You grin. "Thanks. I borrowed it from a bat." No one laughs. but you're pretty sure someone smiled in their lungs. You step back. Into the hallway, brain gently swaying even after your body stops. You feel less full, in a good way, like you've emptied a drawer and found nothing. But enjoyed the sound of it opening, the red-sandaled monk says. Nothing just walks beside you, and that feels like the truest conversation of all. The hallway tilts not physically, but perceptually. Your sense of direction begins to feel like a polite suggestion rather than a rule. You're walking on what your feet believe is the floor, but your eyes start to suspect otherwise. Stones above you look inviting, suspiciously clean, slightly curved, as if smoothed by countless footsteps, not meant to be upright. The red-sandaled monk turns a corner and gestures for you to follow. He pushes open a small wooden hatch in the wall, no handle. Of course, Anne reveals a narrow staircase, but it spirals downward in a strange way. Instead of descending into shadow, the stairs curve up into a space that feels like it should be under something, and yet it grows brighter with each step. You climb, and as you reach the top bottom, the smell hits you first. Soil, wet stone, basil, lemon balm, hint of mint. You emerge into what you assume incorrectly. It's a greenhouse. It's not. It's a ceiling garden. An entire botanical space hanging from above. You step in, and your breath catches the garden is suspended. Literally. Dozens of plants, lavender, rosemary, thyme, lotus hang, upside down from soil beds attached to the ceiling, their roots exposed, cradled in moss. Gravity-defying streams of water trickle upward, flowing along glass tubes that arch over your head and curl back into the earth above. It's the Sistine Chapel of herbs, and not a single leaf is growing correctly. You reach up. The red-sandaled monk appears beside you with a long-handled blade. "We harvest from below," he says, handing you the tool. To remind ourselves that what nourishes us often dangles just out of reach. You look up down and spot a cluster of tiny figs, blooming upside down like they forgot which way gravity works. "How is this possible?" you murmur. "We don't ask," he replies. The garden grows best when ignored gently. You raise the blade and snip a fig. It drops upward into your hand. You blink. The monk smiles. The trick, he says, is not to understand. It's to participate. He gestures toward a small bench mounted sideways on the wall, which now feels suspiciously like the floor. You sit. The bench obliges. From this perspective, everything becomes a hanging tapestry of life. Roots drift in shallow bowls of mist. A lemon tree curls like a question mark. A single sunflower twists slowly, following the light that reflects from mirrors embedded in the floor above. Why build it like this, you ask? Because we got bored with growing food the same way. And because the monks were losing the use of their necks from constantly looking down. Fair. He hands you a journal bound upside down, of course. Inside, sketches of plants, notes in neat handwriting, and haikus about the dignity of lettuce. You flip through. Spinach sleeps hanging.
Allow soil to weigh down its thoughts.
Morning dew wakes first. You laugh. Quietly. The monk doesn't react. But his sandals tap twice on the stone. You suspect that's the monastic equivalent of a chuckle. You look up at a vine curling around a copper pipe. "Do you ever get disoriented?" "Constantly," he replies. "It's the first step toward new orientation." You let the silence grow between you. Feels nourished here, like the plants. Somewhere in the garden a bell chimes. Not for prayer, but for misting. A light spray rains upward, catching in the roots like whispers. You stand and walk slowly through the rows of green. Each plant seems to pulse with quiet purpose. One monk in the corner is gently brushing moss off the roots of a turnip. He waves. You wave back. His feet are strapped to a ceiling beam, hanging like a gardener shaped by riddles. You find a patch of mint and pluck a leaf. It curls in your fingers like a yawn. You chew. Fresh. Startling. Honest. The monk leads. You back down the spiral staircase. At the bottom, you pause and look back up. The garden has disappeared behind the hatch, but your breath still tastes like green. You feel rooted and upside down all at once, and you wonder, what else have you always grown the wrong way? You smell the snail prophet before you see him. It's not unpleasant, just earthy, like moss after a long nap. The air grows cooler and wetter as you walk, like the walls have decided to take up gardening. Lichen spreads lazily across the stone, forming patterns that look suspiciously like letters. But whenever you squint, they rearrange themselves out of embarrassment. The red-sandaled monk pauses at an arched doorway, carved low and wide like someone expected visitors who either crawl or carry wisdom at an extremely slow pace. He doesn't speak much, the monk says softly. But when he does, the vegetables listen. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. You'll see. You duck into the chamber. It's dim and round, lit only by shafts of indirect sunlight that bounce off bowls of polished copper set into the walls. The light glints like it's been taught to whisper at the center of the room, nestled in a shallow pool of water and encircled by concentric circles of stones, is a monk, or what remains of one. He's seated, legs crossed, spine upright. Covers his robe in elegant swirls, like embroidery made of patience. Tiny ferns peek from his sleeves. His beard has merged with a cluster of ivy. His eyebrows are perfectly groomed. It's probably by snails. And yes, dash snails. At least a dozen. They travel leisurely across his arms, shoulders, and curiously his forehead, which is painted with a spiral you're certain was not applied by human. Hands, you don't speak, because honestly, what would you say? The monk the snail prophet opens one eye. It is deeply calm. He blinks once, then very slowly raises one hand and points to the cushion across from him. You sit, carefully trying not to crush any unexpected gastropods. The red-sandaled monk doesn't follow. He simply nods once and disappears, leaving you in the humid hush of moss and silence. Time passes. You don't check a watch. You don't fidget. You just sit. Eventually, the prophet speaks. His voice is raspy but fluid, like wind through wet. Reads, snails do not worry where they are going, and yet they always arrive. You nod, because what else do you do when wisdom ambles toward you at 0.5 centimeter per second? He continues. I once slept for 13 days without turning. When I woke, my dreams had organized themselves alphabetically, and a snail had written a poem on my cheek in slime. You resist the urge to ask if he kept the poem. He holds up one finger. Listen, you hear nothing then. Slowly, a snail drops from his shoulder onto the stone. Plop. He closes his eyes again. That is today's omen. You blink, sure? Okay, you look around. The room contains dozens of small bowls, each filled with stones, water, or plant clippings. One contains only a single feather. Another, an empty teacup with a tiny spiral painted inside. You realize, slowly, this is not a room for answers. It's a room for observations. You watch the snails. One moves toward a line of salt. Someone has etched faintly into the floor. It pauses, turns away. That one, the prophet says, eyes still closed, knows not. All thresholds must be crossed. You nod again. At some point, he begins humming. A low, tremulous hum that resonates in the bowls around the room. You close your eyes too, and dream not asleep. It's but close. You dream of a map drawn in snail trails, slowly fading in the rain. A language made of moss, whispered only at dusk. A heartbeat that pulses once every hour, but never misses. A teacup so still, it reflects the thoughts you haven't had yet. You open your eyes. The prophet is watching you now. He leans forward, very slowly, and places something in your palm. It's a stone, smooth, damp, shaped like a spiral. This is not for throwing, he says. It's for remembering where stillness begins. You nod a final time. Stand, bow. One of the snails waves at you with an antenna. Probably you. Step back into the corridor. The red-sandaled monk reappears, like a punctuation mark. Did he speak a little? Then you're lucky, he says. Last week he only communicated through lettuce. You both begin walking again. The stone is warm in your hand. Not magically, just tensionally. And you realize something. Stillness isn't the absence of motion. It's the motion that asks nothing in return. You should be tired. You've been walking upside down through philosophy. tea rituals, gravity gardens, and snails with prophetic leanings. Your feet have wandered quiet hallways. Your thoughts have taken more turns than the monastery has staircases, and yet you feel strangely alert until you see the beds. Then suddenly, remember what it means to long for sleep. The red-sandaled monk opens a door that creaks not from age, but from politeness. Inside, rows upon rows of sleeping slings, not unlike the ones you've rested in before, but these hang lower, closer to the floor, as if dreaming didn't require such height anymore, and none of them have pillows. Not one. You raise an eyebrow. No pillows, you ask? Pillowless, the monk confirms. By doctrine, you're not sure if he's serious. But then again, everything here teeters just shy of satire and sanctuary. He gestures for you to follow as you walk down the rows. The slings rock gently, many occupied by softly breathing monks wrapped in simple cloths, hands resting across their chests like they're holding invisible promises. We used to use pillows, he begins. Soft ones, feathered, herbal stuffed. Even one made of crushed cherry pits and bad decisions. Comfortable, deliciously so? Which was the problem? Stops at an empty sling and places his palm on the edge. A pillow, he says, is the beginning of expectation. If your head rests too well, your dreams become indulgent. If it rests too poorly, your sleep becomes resentful. You consider this. You've never questioned the politics of pillows before. So what do you rest on instead, you ask? Humility, he replies. You wait for a grin that never comes, forces the neck to choose. To surrender forward or tilt back. Either way, it participates. You glance again at the slings. They cradled the body like parentheses, soft, supportive, but not smothering. You ask if monks ever sneak in a cushion. The monk nods. We had a rogue pillow once, smuggled in under a robe. What happened? He slept beautifully, and then couldn't dream for a week. Too much comfort, not enough inquiry. You're not sure if it's metaphor or exaggeration. You also wonder if they confiscated it like contraband. You eventually made him bury it, the monk adds, answering the question you didn't ask. With a short ceremony, did they cry? Only the goose who donated the feathers. You laugh out loud. It echoes through the slings. A monk 2 rows over snorts in his sleep. You both pause. Listen. Silence returns. Sometimes. The monk says softly, a pillow becomes a wall, not against discomfort, but against discovery. You step into your sling. It hugs your back, your legs, your shoulders. But your head hovers suspended just enough that you must choose where to rest it. You tilt slightly back. Your breath deepens. It's strange, you murmur. I don't miss the pillow. You rarely miss what you've outgrown, he replies. He takes something from his robe and slips it into your hand. It's a tiny linen pouch inside. A few grains of dried lavender tied with a red thread. To scent the question, he says. What question? Where do you go when comfort no longer defines you? He walks away, and you cradled, but unsupported, close your eyes. You don't fall asleep. You float there, somewhere between ache and ease, wondering what your dreams might say without the cushion of habit beneath them. You wait, and eventually, they begin to speak. You wake to sound, not loud, not music, not voices, just sound wrapped in echoes. It's bouncing off stone like marbles in a drum. It takes you a moment to realize where you are. The scent of dried lavender still lingers from the pouch in your palm. Head feels light but not dizzy, like your thoughts remembered to stretch before waking. You sit up in your sling and listen. The sound is rhythmic, deep, hollow, almost wooden. You step into the corridor barefoot this time. The floor is cool and smooth. You follow the pulse. Each step tuning your senses further into its frequency, and then you see it. The barrel hall, the door is already open, as if the sound itself had unlocked it. You step inside, and your breath catches. It's enormous. The walls are made of curved oak staves, braced by iron rings just like a barrel. The ceiling arcs high overhead in a perfect half-dome. The floor is concave, forming a vast circle that dips gently at the center, and the acoustics. The acoustics hum with memory. A monk walks across the room at the far side. His sandals click softly on the wooden floor, but each step echoes 4 times once from each direction. Then back into silence like a question half forgotten. The red-sandaled monk joins you, quiet as always. It was built to hold rainwater, he says. But the echoes were so beautiful, we never filled it. So what is it now? You whisper. A chamber for resonance, not for voice, but for self. He steps forward and claps his hands. Once, the sound bounces from wall to wall in a perfect spiral, then returns to you as if it had changed its mind halfway around the world. Sound, he says, reminds us we exist in more directions than forward. You walk slowly into the center of the room. Every footstep becomes a ripple. You pause and inhale deeply. The red-sandaled monk watches. Say something, he suggests. You hesitate, then say the most truthful thing you can think of. Don't know what I'm doing. Your voice flies. It arcs up, bounces from beam to beam, and returns, not mockingly, but kindly. I don't know what I'm doing. Doing. And then silence again. Warm silence. You sit at the center of the barrel, legs crossed, palms open.
Ow.
The wood beneath you vibrates faintly. The walls listen. After a while, you notice them. Dozens of small holes drilled into the walls. Not decorative, functional. The monks say these holes let doubt escape, the red-sandaled monk offers, like steam from a too-full pot. Does it work? Only when you're honest, you try again. I'm afraid of going back. Your voice loops once, twice, afraid of going back. And then it fades, and you feel lighter. Not because the fear is gone, because you admitted it out loud to a room built to echo and forgive. A monk enters from the far side, carrying a large wooden drum shaped like a gourd. He places it at the far end of the room and strikes it once with a soft mallet. Trum. The sound travels beneath your spine like a forgotten lullaby. It doesn't startle, it enfolds. He strikes it again and again. Each time you feel less like a person sitting in a room and more like a note that belongs in a song. Then the red-sandaled monk joins him, no drum. Just his sandals tapping in rhythm together. They create a rhythm made of softness. Then they stop. No bow, no flourish, just silence. We do this once a week, the monk says, to let the echoes remind us what stayed behind. You nod. They ever come back wrong? No, they come back clarified. Like tea brewed a little longer than you meant. He smiles. You stand. Stretch, the air feels different. Or maybe you're just taller. As you walk back toward the door, you pause and say one last thing. I'm glad I came. The echo takes its time. Glad I came. I came. Yeah. Then, nothing. Just breath. You step outside. And the world feels quieter, not because it stopped speaking, but because you finally started listening. The night smells like citrus and smoke. You step into the courtyard guided only by candlelight and the soft shuffle of robes. A monk hands you a hood, not for warmth, but for quiet. It muffles the ears slightly, like being underwater in thought. The fabric is light, the color somewhere between mothwing and midnight. Above, sky opens like a bowl turned gently upside down. You can't see stars, clouds cover them tonight, but you can feel something watching. It's not eyes, not presence. Something older. Something winged. The red-sandaled monk appears beside you, naturally. It's the 28th night, he says quietly. You wait. Wait for what? You ask permission, gestures toward a low bench made of smooth stone, shaped like a crescent. You sit, and so do others, dozens of monks gathering silently, each wearing the same soft hood, each looking up into the black bowl of sky. Then, chime. Not metal, not man-made. The unmistakable cry of a bat high, echoing, then another and another. There, coming from somewhere above, in ones and twos, and then suddenly in flocks, bats spiral down into the courtyard. They don't land. They circle, dip, hover, then rise again, forming a lazy cyclone of wings and sound. The monks don't move. They simply tilt their heads slightly upward. eyes half-lidded, as if they're letting the sound fall directly onto their foreheads. You sit still, trying to do the same. The bats squeak in a rhythm you can't quite decode. It's not chaotic. It's structured. It rises and falls like speech, but spoken in a language shaped by cave walls and moonlight. Then the monk at the front of the gathering stands. His robe is slightly darker, and his sandals are S-red, but dusted in white powder like chalk. Or memory. He raises his hand, and slowly the bats begin to quiet. One lands on his wrists and stays. He doesn't flinch. Tonight, he says softly, we listen to the sermon of inversion. His voice is so quiet it blends into the night, not swallowed, not echoed, absorbed. The bat teaches without pride. It flies blind, not to challenge the world, but to trust it. It feeds on what hides. It sees what others can't. And when it rests, it hangs. You glance upward. More bats now hang from the courtyard eaves, swaying like tiny bells. To hang is to yield, he continues. To trust your weight to the structure you did not build. This monastery is not our construction. It is our confession. We live here upside down, not because we must, but because the world has insisted again and again that up is the only holy direction. We say, no. He lowers his hand. The bats flutter softly. We say, the truth is not always at the top. A monk to your left raises a scroll, unrolls it. It's blank. You ask, whispering, what's written on it? He tilts it toward you. At first, nothing. Then, under the light of the courtyard, a message appears, ink faint and flickering. Some truths must be hung to be seen. The ink vanishes again. The monk rolls the scroll without urgency. The sermon continues not in words, but in stillness. Each monk now hangs their head not in shame, but in surrender. One by one, they rise from their seats. Step into small slings hung along the courtyard perimeter and lean back. Arms crossed over their chests. No ritual words, just breath and the bats. Still circling, begin to echo that rhythm, the flapping. Slows, the sound softens. You stand and step into one of the remaining slings. You lean back, and the world flips again, not violently, not suddenly, just realigned. You see the bats above you, you see the monks swaying, and you see the stars. Now emerging between clouds, blinking their approval, the red-sandaled monk passes you one last time. He holds a folded scrap of parchment. He slips it into your palm and keeps walking. You open it inside. When the world tells you to stand tall, ask who benefits from your balance. The bats begin to leave, quiet, purposeful. The monks remain, in stillness, in inversion, and for the first time, you do not. Want to get up? You just want to hang here a little longer? You don't know when the bats left. They vanished like mist, one moment swirling above, the next dissolving into shadow and breeze. You remained in your sling long after they were gone, listening to the silence they left behind. It's different. From the other silences in the monastery, this one feels resolved. Like a conversation that ended, not because it was over, but because everyone understood. The monks begin to rise. One by one, stepping gently from their slings and walking, barefoot across the stone. You follow them, your legs slow to remember gravity, your mind still upside down in the best way. The red-sandaled monk is waiting. Of course, he says nothing, just walks. And you walk beside him, the sound of your feet on stone barely more than suggestion. You follow him through a narrow passage that curves gently inward. The light grows dim again, filtered through long slits in the walls that cast thin columns of gold across your path, like measuring sticks for time. Tonight, he finally says, you'll learn how to float above regret. You don't answer. You don't have to. You're beginning to understand the monastery's rhythm. Not everything is explained. Some things are simply encountered. He leads you into a wide, circular chamber at first. It seems empty, but then you look down. The floor is a shallow pool, still clear, lit from beneath. Tiny bits of mica sparkle beneath the surface, creating the illusion of stars beneath your feet. a mirror of the sky turned inward. In the center of the pool, a single platform, barely raised, just enough for one person to stand. No bridges, no path. How do I get there, you ask? You don't. E gestures to the wall. You see them robes, hanging neatly. Light linen, sleeveless. You change silently. Your other clothes folded and placed into a small basket lined with dried fern. You step barefoot. It's warm. It's warm, not hot, not cool. The exact temperature of memory. Each step ripples out in slow, perfect circles. You begin to walk not toward the platform, but just ... through. The red-sandaled monk begins to speak behind you, voice low, like it's meant only for the water to hear. Regret, he says, is the memory of action tied to the illusion of control. It clings to the ankles, pulls downward. But when you learn to let the past dangle instead of anchor, you begin to float. You stop at the center. You close your eyes, and you let your thoughts drift intentionally. You remember that time you said too much. The thing you didn't say, the name you forgot, the night you stayed, the day you left, the apology you rehearsed but never delivered, the moment you turned away, the silence that felt like failure. And yet, the water doesn't change. It doesn't judge, it just holds. The monk's voice returns. If you drop a stone in still water, it ripples. Then it stills again. So must you. You open your eyes. The platform in the center isn't for standing on. It's for reflecting from. You step into its glow, not above its water, but within it. And now you see your reflection, but not from above, from below. Upside down your face. Taut softened. Wiser. No, more forgiving. You smile just a little. The reflection does. 2, you kneel. You place your palms on the surface, and it holds you. The regret doesn't vanish. It doesn't dissolve. It floats around you, past you. It becomes part of the pool one. More ripple in a body of understanding. You whisper not to the monk, not to yourself, but to the water. Thank you for keeping what I couldn't carry. And the water responds with silence that feels like forgiveness. You stand, step back, return to the edge. Your robe clings lightly, not unpleasant. A towel waits, of course. The red-sandaled monk bows once. You return it deeply. Did it help? He asks. It didn't fix anything, you say, but I think it unhooked something. Good. He nods. Hooks belong in the chapel. You laugh softly. He walks beside you again, both of you damp and quiet. Your regrets didn't disappear, but they stopped anchoring. And now you float, not above the world, above the weight of what once was. And that's enough. The chamber smells of cedar and dust, not the kind of dust you find in neglect, but the dust of time, settled, accepted. A quiet witness to patience. The red-sandaled monk leads you through a low, curved hallway lit by oil lamps no larger than teacups. Their light flickers sideways, casting shadows that stretch like stories waiting to be told. He stops before a carved wooden door, darker than the others. The grain spirals inward like a fingerprint. On its surface, a single brass hook protrudes empty. This, the monk says, is where we keep the story of the one who dangled too long. He doesn't knock, just pushes gently. The room inside is small, circular, of course, at the center. A thick wooden beam stretches horizontally from one wall to the other well, worn in the middle, wrapped in an old cloth sling. And there, suspended even now, is the monk, older than stone, eyes closed, body still, breath slow, too slow. You can't tell if he's asleep, meditating, or transcending in some intermediate state known only to spiders and saints. His name was Brother Casso, the red-sandaled monk says softly. Once a brilliant student of breath and balance, he believed if he dangled long enough, he could find the perfect dream. You glance up. Did he? That's the question. The sling creaks slightly as the old monk shifts, just a hair. The sound feels monumental. You walk around the room. The walls are covered with scrolls stacked haphazardly, pinned with wooden pegs, some written in bold ink, others smudged by time and humidity. You read a few. Day 3. I dreamed of a bell made of feathers. Day 12. My toes no longer remember. The ground. Day 27. The silence beneath my knees has begun to speak. Day 49. The sling is now part of my spine. You pause. How long has he been here? You ask. 7 years, the monk replies. Give or take a calendar. Why hasn't anyone helped him down? We asked. Once, he declined. Politely. With a quote from a dream. You look again at Brother Casso. His beard has braided itself without assistance. Small spider crawls along the sling's edge. Neither monk nor spider seems disturbed by the other. Does he eat only dream fruit? You're about to ask what that means, but the red-sandaled monk smiles preemptively.
Age sways when it's ripe.
You sit on a cushion near the Yi. While not wanting to intrude further, the room hums gently with the movement of air. The wood creaks again. Brother Casso murmurs something. It's quiet, fragile. You lean in, he whispers. The dream is not found in sleep, but in the moment before. When the body forgets which way is down, and then he stills again. The red-sandaled monk bows toward him. You do the same. What happens if he never comes down? You ask. Then he becomes part of the monastery, the monk replies. Like a bell no one rings, but everyone hears. You rise as you leave the room. You glance back once more. Brother Casso sways ever so slightly, and you wonder, is he closer to the dream, or has he become it? Back in the corridor, the air feels heavier, not unpleasant, just full, like silence packed with meaning. The red-sandaled monk walks beside you. Some people chase dreams, he says. Others let dreams wrap around them like slings. You nod, and some, you add, build entire rooms around their refusal to wake up. He grins. We call those monks instructors, you. Laugh softly and keep walking. The story of the one who dangled. Too long now hangs quietly in your chest. Not a warning, not a goal, just a possibility. And maybe that's enough. There's a hum in the air. Not mechanical, not natural, not even musical at least. Not in the usual sense. It's the kind of sound that makes your teeth tingle, ever so slightly, like a note struck inside your bones. As you walk, you feel it. More than hear it, a low, vibrating warmth underfoot. In the walls. Somewhere in your chest. The red-sandaled monk leads you through an archway woven with vines, not plants, but ropes. Knotted, looped, braided. Some hang loose like sleeping thoughts. Others form patterns resembling sheet music. If the composer had been an extremely sleepy octopus, beyond the arch, the choir. Chamber, it's vast, hollow, and entirely upside down. The ceiling is the stage. From it hang more than 20 monks, suspended in perfect symmetry, like ornaments from a patient tree. Each in a sling, each upside down, each holding a small wooden chime between their palms. The slings creak in rhythm. The silence before their sound is ceremonial. Full of breath, you and the monk sit cross-legged on the floor, which, technically, is the ceiling to them. They only sing once a month, he whispers, on the full moon. Or whenever someone needs to remember the sky has weight. You look up. The monks begin to sway. Gently, back and forth. Their motion forms a wave, as if invisible water is rocking them all in unison. Then, one monk exhales. A long, low note. More hum than tone. Another joins. And another, no words, no melody, just vibrations, together. They form a sound so soft it might not even be real. Tickles your ears, and tickles something older in you too. It feels like the sound of something blooming. Underground? Why upside down? You whisper. Because sound falls, the monk replies. And when you're above it, you're singing into gravity. He places a small chime in your hand. It's carved from light wood and smells like rain. Tilt it, he says. You do. The chime doesn't ring. It breathes a soft tone sighs out of it, like an old violin trying to remember a lullaby. You close your eyes. The choir swells, not louder, but deeper. Their voices layer, echo, blend, until you can no longer tell how many voices there are, or which direction they come from. You picture a windmill spinning underwater, a cave that hums lullabies to passing bats, a bell made of fog. Each monk sings as if releasing one burden at a time, tiny threads unwinding into the air, then dissolving. The sound never sharpens. It rolls, folds, swirls like warm mist in a room. With no corners, you open your eyes. The room feels curved now, not in shape. But in time, the sound begins to taper, monks lowering their tones, softening their breath, until one by one, they fall silent, not abruptly, like candles gently going out. The silence afterward is thick, sacred, generous. You don't want to move, and you don't have to, because the echo lingers in your ribs, in your spine, in your thoughts. Did you hear? The monk asks. Yes, you reply, softly, all of it. But you pause. Enough. He smiles. That's what they sing for. Not understanding. Saturation. You look up once more. The monks are still hanging, now in rest. Eyes closed, hands relaxed, chimes folded in their palms like forgiveness. What's the song called, you ask? He considers. Some call it reversal, others call it unburdening. What do you call it? The song that sings you back? You nod. The chime in your hand pulses gently, and you realize this was not a performance. It was a ceremony, not to impress. To restore, you rise slowly. The monks remain aloft, their breath now blending with the hush of the room itself. And as you step away, the song continues. Not in sound, but in silence that hums where it matters most. Inside you. You descend. Not physically at least, not right away. The feeling starts in your thoughts. It's a soft downward tug, like someone loosening a rope around your shoulders. Each step you take through the quiet hallway is accompanied by a faint spiral. Carved into the floor, the grooves shallow but deliberate. The red-sandaled monk says nothing. He only gestures to a doorway ahead round. Narrow, more like the opening to a shell than a room. You duck slightly and enter. The spiral stairwell of thought. At first glance, it's just stairs. Worn stone. A gentle curve. But then you notice the handrail twisted wood that feels too warm to be just timber. Like it remembers every hand it's steadied. Symbols are etched into it at intervals. Spirals, knots, mirrored words, and tiny arrows pointing both ways. This staircase, the monk finally speaks, descends into contemplation. What's at the bottom, you ask? He smiles. You begin to descend. The spiral turns slowly, clockwise, downward. But the lighting never dims. Many steps, a lantern glows, not with flame, but with something softer. Bioluminescent moss? Thoughtful fireflies? You don't ask. You're learning not to. After 7 full turns, something odd happens. Your thoughts change shape, not content form. They become. Circular, you begin to think not in linear sentences, but in ideas that loop, questions that fold into themselves. Like, if I understand something better upside down, did I ever truly see it right side up? Can silence echo in both directions? What is the weight of a thought that never leaves your mouth? You pause on a landing marked with a small tile that reads halfway if you're honest. Just beginning. If you're stubborn, you smirk, keep walking. The spiral tightens slightly. The walls curve inward. On the next landing, a mirror, but it doesn't show your face. It reflects your posture, just your spine, head, and shoulders. You stand straighter without meaning to. The mirror glows faintly, then dims. You continue at one point. You pass a monk climbing up the stairwell. You make eye contact briefly. She smiles and says nothing, neither do you. But in that glance, you exchange thoughts. You don't know what hers was. Yours might have been, we are both going in the same direction, just from different regrets. The walls begin to whisper. Not words. Just ... Pressure. A weight behind your ears that suggests insight is near. You'd better be still enough to catch it. Then the staircase ends abruptly at a small stone platform with a single cushion in the center and an inscription on the wall. You read it aloud. Here the mind turns not for answers, but to be dizzy enough to let go of needing them. You sit, cross, dash-legged, back straight, the cushion size, and you wait. There's no chant, no breathwork, no monk to guide you, only you and the spiral behind you. You close your eyes, and thoughts begin to move, not away, not toward, but around. They orbit like small planets, no longer needing to crash. Memories surface, but differently. They don't knock, they swirl, some slow, some quick. One circles 3 times before fading like a polite comet. You smile and think nothing at all. Just spin. Eventually you rise. Step slowly back into the spiral staircase. Climb. Each step feels easier, not lighter, but more earned when you reach the top again. The red-sandaled monk is waiting. He holds a warm cup of something. He hands it to you. You've gone in circles, he says. I know. Did you get lost? Only on purpose. D. He grins. Then you're ready for the weightless part. So there's a weightless part? Sort of. He taps your temple. It's not out there. It's in the orbit. You sip the tea. It tastes like memory steeped and softened. And you realize that stairs weren't for going down. They were for turning inward. And you're still spiraling. But now, it feels like dance. Gravity greets you like an old friend. You forgot was holding you up the entire time. You don't notice it until you leave the spiral behind. As you walk into the next chamber, your shoulders feel heavier, but not in a burdensome way. Your bones have returned from a long flight and are happy to settle again into their quiet duties. The room ahead is empty, purposefully so. No slings, no scrolls, no monks. Just space. And a single smooth stone slab at the center, shaped like a shallow bowl. Light pours in through a circle above, casting a bright spotlight on it. The red-sandaled monk follows behind. You silent until the door closes with a soft click. We've spoken much of release, he says, of inversion, of floating and forgetting. You nod, but tonight, he continues, we remember. He walks to the edge of the stone bowl and sits beside it, cross-legged. You sit opposite him. Gravity, he says, is often accused of being cruel, of pulling us down, of keeping us small. But here, he runs his hand across the smooth stone. We believe gravity is not what grounds us. It's what connects us. You're quiet. He gestures to the center of the bowl. Lie there. It's warm, the stone. It's not heated, but warmed by time and repetition. So many bodies have rested here before you. You can feel the memory of every exhale, every weight surrendered, every dream released and welcomed back. As you lie flat, you feel your entire back connect to the curve. Your head, hips, heels, sole aligned. Supported, kralid, held not in resistance, but in full surrender. Most of us, the monk says, walk through the world fighting what holds us. But gravity is not opposition. It is invitation. Close your eyes. You begin to notice things. The slow drop of your breath through your chest. The way your hands feel heavier than your arms. The strange truth that your jaw carries tension even when you're not speaking. The monk's voice returns. Slow, gentle, certain. We do not float to escape. We float to remember the weight we've always carried. And then we let it return not to crush us, but to remind us we're real. You open your eyes to the ceiling. It's round. Of course it is. But what's painted there surprises you. A figure curled in the fetal position, orbiting a moon made of sandals. You blink. That's me. You ask. The monk shrugs. It's everyone and no one. The ceiling is repainted every year by the novice who dreams most deeply about falling. You laugh softly, then fall silent again. Gravity tugs at your spine. But it doesn't hurt. It just anchors, like a blanket made of truth. The monk stands and walks to a small alcove, returns with a stone-smooth, dark circular the size of your palm. He places it gently on your chest. just over your sternum. You feel it immediately. Not heavy, not invasive, just honest. This is the stone of self, he says. It is not magic. It is not sacred, but it is real. And that is enough. You breathe in and feel the stone rise. You breathe out and feel it settle. Carry it when you remember, he says. Leave it when you forget. You don't ask what that means. You already know. He bows, and you lie there, long after he's gone. Stone on your chest, gravity in your bones, not weighing you down, but reminding you, you belong. Here, you are meant to touch the earth, and when the time is right, you'll lift off again. But not to escape, only to return softer. Sleep doesn't come easily tonight. Not because you're restless, because you're too still. There's a difference. Your body feels like it's been filled with warm sand. Heavy, grounded, content. Your mind, however, is pacing the hallways quietly. Politely, but without stopping. The red-sandaled monk appears beside your sling, holding something strange in his arms. A bundle of fabric, pale and coarse, with frayed knots at each corner. It looks like a blanket made of bags tonight. He says, "You'll sleep under memory." You sit up. He unfolds the bundle. It's not one blanket, but many tied together with red string. Each segment filled with fine sand, stitched shut, and marked with symbols. We call them CTTNG, he explains. Weighted blankets. Of intention, each one contains a dream someone had and chose to release. He drapes it over your legs. It's heavier than it looks, but not unpleasant. Like someone who knows you well has just leaned. Against your side, he places another segment, across your chest. The string pulls slightly at the corners, hugging your ribs. Why sand, you ask? 'Cause it shifts without leaving, he says. Like dreams. Or forgiveness. He sits beside your sling. You lie back again. It's fully cocooned now beneath the blanket of sand and string. The weight is peculiar. It doesn't press. It reminds each knot in the blanket. Contains a story, a dream. Tied off like the end of a sentence, you ask softly, "Can I open one?" He smiles, "Only with your breath." You inhale, exhale, and you feel it. A warmth at your shoulder. A tug of memory behind your eye. Images flicker, not yours, but familiar. In the way dreams often are. A girl walking through a forest of paper trees. A boy floating above a table set for tea with no chairs. A monk standing on water, speaking to his own reflection. Each breath opens a different dream. Not all are vivid. Some are shapes, some are textures, some are just. Colors that feel like memories. You sigh. The blanket shifts, sand flows gently across. Your knees resettling like thought. The monk speaks again, low and slow. Long ago, monks would write their regrets on cloth and fill them with sand. To sleep under them was to learn the weight of their own stories. And now we sleep under each other's. You close your eyes. You can feel the intention in the stitches, careful, uneven, real, not perfect. Precise your hands. Rest on your chest, fingertips touching the string. You trace one knot. It feels like a period at the end of a sentence you never got to say out loud. Sometimes, the monk says, "We don't need to let go. You just need to rest underneath." You nod barely. "What happens if I cry?" you ask. "Then the sand will know you're soft enough to stay." You almost laugh, almost, but instead, you breathe again, and the blanket adjusts. It molds to your shape without changing its own. The red-sandaled. Monk stands, bows leaves. You don't notice him go. You're somewhere else now, beneath a sky made of cloth and small kindnesses held not tightly, but intentionally. Weighted, yes, but with love, with memory, with stories that no longer ask for resolution, only rest. You sleep not to forget, but to feel the shape of what still matters. And when you dream, your own knot begins to form, soft, silent, waiting to be sewn. You wake with the faint sensation that something has been written on your skin, not in ink, in presence. You lie still for a while beneath the blanket of sand and string. The weight no longer feels heavy, just familiar, like a hand resting lightly on your thoughts. The dreams from the night before linger like the scent of burned sage, quiet, earthy, and a little sweet. You sit up and find a small scroll tucked under the edge. Of your sling, you didn't place it there. It's rolled tight and tied with a single strand of red thread. When you untie it, the paper uncoils in your hands like it's been waiting for you. But there's nothing written on it, not a mark, blank. At first, then slowly. Words begin to appear. Upward, yes, dash upward. The ink rises from the bottom of the scroll, toward the top, revealing a message not drawn by pen, but by evaporation. You stare as the words float into visibility, as though summoned by your gaze alone. Some thoughts do not wish to be written, as they wish to be discovered. The red-sandaled monk enters the room with a wooden bowl filled with still water. He sets it on the floor, gestures for you to follow, then dips the edge of the scroll into the water. The ink glows briefly and lifts from the page, rising like steam, and reforms on the surface of the water, drifting like petals on a pond. We call it muck enshin, he says. Memory ink. Why does it float? Because it was never meant to stay still. You kneel beside the bowl. The words swim across the surface. Some remain intact. Others break apart and swirl into shapes, into symbols you almost recognize: spirals, hooks, leaves, sleeping eyes. We write using the air from our lungs, the monk says. Exhaled gently into a well of infused tea, then we dip the paper. What's the point, you ask? To remember that not all writing is meant to last. Some is meant to pass through. He hands you a fresh piece of scroll and a teacup. You drink slowly. The tea tastes like anise. It's in clove. Warming soft, he sets the bowl between you. You exhale over it. The surface ripples. He dips your blank scroll into the bowl. Which ink appears not. Just random but in the shape of a word. Almost. You blink. Is that my thought? No, the monk replies. That's your hesitation. He smiles gently. Try again. This time, you drink deeply, then lean closer to the bowl. You speak not aloud, but inwardly. A memory surfaces. You, sitting at a desk long ago, wanting to write something true, but crossing it out before it ever left the pen. You exhale. The scroll is dipped again. This time 2 words emerge. Still here. You feel them land in your chest like pebbles dropped into calm water. The monk nods. The ink only floats if the thought has not yet anchored. So what happens when it sinks? He gestures toward another bowl nearby. It's darker. Ink at the bottom settles like silt. That, he says, is for thoughts that need more time. You stare into the bowl. Something about it aches, and yet comforts. The monk hands you a final scroll, this one already prepared with dried ink, faint but readable. What's this one? A message left for you? We don't know who wrote it. You open it. The writing is familiar. Yours or not. Reads, you'll never remember everything, but you'll remember enough to return. You fold the scroll slowly. Place it in your robe. You rise. The bowls ripple behind you. The floating ink spins gently, forming loops that fade into the air. Like steam, you step into the hallway, and behind your eyes, you carry messages, not written, but lifted. Not remembered, but known. By now, the world doesn't seem upside down anymore. It just seems optional. You no longer feel the need to ask which way is up. The monastery has taught you to navigate by weight, by pause, by breath. So when the red-sandaled monk hands you a scroll with no explanation and gestures to follow him through a door labeled only with a spiral, you don't question it. You step through and step directly into reversal. The room appears ordinary at first, but then you realize everything is backward, not mirrored, reversed. Words carved above the archways are written right to a left. The floor tiles form a gradient from light to dark in the opposite direction of the hallway you entered. Even the scent in the room, rosemary and smoke, feels like it's wafting from future to past. The monk gestures for you to sit on a cushion. It's already warm, as if recently vacated by someone who thought in loops. Today, he says, we meditate not forward, but in reverse. You tilt your head. How does that work? As gently as possible, he replies. He sits across. From you, then begins a curious ritual first. He takes off his sandals, then he places them behind his back. Then he closes his eyes, inhales deeply, and exhales before inhaling again. Yes, he breathes out.
Oh.
Then in as, if preparing to unwind. Something you try, and you feel ridiculous, your body resists. Of course it does. You've been moving forward. Since birth, you've been taught progress is a straight line, but now, sitting in silence, breathing backwards, you begin to notice. Your memories are easier to access than your plans. Your spine straightens when you stop anticipating. Your thoughts, when uncoiled, don't run, they settle. The monk opens his eyes. Close your left hand, he says, not in a fist, in memory. You do. He nods. Ain't. That's where your earliest thought now rests. He asks you to say your name aloud, but backward. You try. It comes out broken, hesitant, unfamiliar. Good, he says. That's what it's like when your ego loses balance. He hands you the scroll. You unroll it. It's a series of instructions. Walk backwards to the far wall. Eat something with your non-dominant hand. Read a sentence silently, but with the punctuation first. Breathe from your belly up, not your chest down. Regret backwards, then release. You stand and take a step back, then another. Your balance wavers. You chuckle, feel like a poorly trained mime. That means it's working, he says. You reach the wall where a mirror hangs upside down. You look into it. Your face familiar? Yes. But less composed, less armored. You don't look like someone performing calm. You look like someone who has given up on control, found clarity instead. The monk speaks again. Inversion doesn't mean rebellion. It means reminder. Reminder of what? That direction is not destiny. He stands, so do you. Tomorrow, he says, you will walk through a hallway where everyone walks backwards. Not to be clever, but to remember. Remember what? That we arrived here by moving forward. We heal by reversing gently. You nod, you mean. He gives you a folded ribbon. It's blank. Write a truth on it, he says, but write it backwards, so that one day when you forget, you'll have to remember it in reverse. You return to your room, sit on your cushion, hold the ribbon, and slowly, carefully with deliberate letters you write, I was already whole before I looked. You fold it and slip it into your robe pocket and smile backwards, perhaps. You lie down and fall asleep, not by sinking, but by unspooling, backward, toward peace. You hear it before, you know you've heard it. A tone not sharp, not soft, not even sound in the usual sense. More like a pressure, a presence. Like someone placed a thought very gently next to your eardrum and didn't expect a reply. You sit. Up in your sling, the air feels different, lighter, quieter. You step into the hallway barefoot, following the pull of something your body responds to before your mind can name it. The red-sandaled monk is already waiting, leaning gently against the wall as if even his posture is part of a riddle. Did you hear it? He asks, eyes twinkling. Maybe you say. He nods. It's exactly the right amount of certainty. Gestures for you to follow. This time, no winding staircases, no painted walls. It's just a narrow corridor that leads to a single circular room. At its center stands a massive bronze bell. Beautiful, ornate, but still, you walk slowly around it. Hangs from a simple wooden frame, carved with hooks and leaves. A thick rope dangles nearby, but there's no clapper inside the bell, just an empty hollow, smooth and perfect. This, the monk says softly, is the bell without a clapper. You nod slowly. So, how does it ring? The question, he says, and also the answer. He steps forward, barefoot, and kneels just beside the bell, not before it, not behind it, beside, as if positioning himself in the presence of something not in reverence but in relationship. We don't strike it, he continues. We breathe with it. Places his hands gently on either side of the bell. Not touching just hovering a few inches away. Then he exhales. Deep, even grounded. You swear the air around the bell shivers. You try. You kneel opposite him, mirror his posture, and breathe. The silence thickens, your breath slows, and then you feel ITA vibration in your chest. A soft tightening around your ribs. Not uncomfortable, not unfamiliar. The echo of something that hasn't sounded yet, but might. You whisper, "Is it real?" He smiles, eyes still closed. It's more real than noise. The bell hums not from inside, but from around. The metal remains still, yet your bones register something like resonance. The kind of sound you don't hear with your ears, but remember with your spine. When the monks first forged it, he says, they forgot to hang the clapper, and instead of fixing it, they listened. You sit in silence for a while longer. Occasionally you think you hear it ring a faint tone, like a memory trying to get your attention. But the monk never moves. He never strikes. He just breathes. Eventually, he opens his eyes. Most people believe bells are meant to be struck, he says. But some are built to invite silence. And in that silence, something purer rings. You nod, still unsure what exactly you're agreeing to. He hands you a piece of thin metal. It's warm from his palm. On it, etched by hand, is a simple phrase. What doesn't ring still resonates. You hold it between your fingers. Your breath deepens without trying. And somewhere, faintly, the bell that has never rung reminds you that silence is not absence. It's invitation. You stand. The bell remains unchanged. And yet, you feel echoed as you leave the room. You don't close the door. It doesn't need to be closed. The sound it never made is still ringing in you. It starts with a shadow. Not heavy. Not ominous. Just peculiar. You notice it as you step into the courtyard again. At first you think it's a low-slung cloud or perhaps a wayward tapestry hung out to dry. But then it shifts slightly in the breeze, and you realize it's shoes. Hundreds of them, hung from threads that crisscross the open. Sky above like a giant spiderweb made by someone nostalgic and barefoot. Sandals, slippers, woven soles, some stitched with red thread, others plain, some ancient, others yours. You look up, and your shoes are there too, swaying gently in the breeze. You hadn't even noticed you weren't wearing them. The red-sandaled monk appears at your side, as if conjured by your confusion. Everyone leaves them behind eventually, he says. It's not because they're done walking, because they're finally staying still. What is this, you ask? The sky of surrendered steps. You watch as another monk enters the courtyard, bends down, removes his shoes, and ties the laces together with care. Then he throws them high. They arc through the air and catch effortlessly, a thread already cluttered with others. Is it symbolic, you ask? Isn't everything? He replies. He gestures for you to walk with him across the stones. In many traditions, he begins, shoes are left at thresholds, doorways, sacred places. It is a sign of humility, of respect. But here he stops and looks upward. Here it is a gesture of lightness. It leads you to the far end of the courtyard where a series of wooden posts support a spiral staircase that winds upward into nothing. You raise an eyebrow. Where does that lead? Nowhere important, he says. It's what's below it that matters. You begin to climb. Each step creaks softly underfoot. Halfway up, you see it. A mirror laid flat on the ground, reflecting the hanging shoes. Above, from this vantage point, the shoes appear to float in the sky, detached from anything earthly, like a storm of soft, dangling stories. Each pair has a story, the monk says, pausing beside you. Some worn from pilgrimage, some never worn at all, points to a pair of delicate straw slippers. Those belong to a monk who arrived, changed his mind, and left. But he forgot to take his shoes. Did he come back? Not in person, the monk says. Not. But his slippers still listen for him. You climb the final steps and sit. Wind brushes against your face, carrying with it the faintest scent of dried sage and warm rope. When we remove our shoes, he continues, we also remove our direction. Is that safe? Not always. But it is honest. You look up again. Your shoes swing slightly, as if whispering secrets to the others nearby. You wonder what yours might be saying, that you've walked far without knowing the destination, that you've paused more than you've pressed forward, that you've never really liked tight laces. The monk hands you a spool of red thread. Tie it to your next step, he says. And then, don't take it. You smile, you understand. Back on the ground, you pause beneath your own dangling shoes. They seem freer now. Lighter, not abandoned, elevated. You kneel, take off your sandals. You don't toss them. Not yet. Instead, you leave them quietly at the foot. Of the post, you'll know when it's time. And when you do, the sky will be ready. The first sign of the festival is not a sound. It's a blink. A slow, deliberate blink from a white owl perched on the edge of the monastery roof. It's watching you with eyes half-lidded, like it's only awake out of social obligation. Another joins. Then another. Within minutes, the edges of the courtyard begin to feather with owls. Dozens of them. Silent. Sleepy. Settling in like honored guests at a very quiet, very peculiar dinner party. You look around. No banners. No candles. Just birds. And monks gathering slowly in the courtyard. Barefoot, carrying bundles of feathers and tiny brass bells the size of lentils. The red-sandaled monk appears at your side, of course. Tonight, he says softly, we celebrate the festival of drowsy owls. You celebrate owls? Invite them, he replies. But really, the festival is for us. He hands you a bundle wrapped in pale fabric. Inside, a length of gauze, embroidered with soft spiral patterns, and a single owl feather tied to one end with red thread. What do I do with this, you ask? Wave it slowly in front of your own thoughts, he replies, until they become too bored to continue. You follow him to the center of the courtyard. The monks are already forming a wide circle, seated, or reclining in graceful disarray. Each has their feather bundle. Each watches the sky or nothing at all with the contentment of someone who has finally found the exact pace they were meant to move at. Above, the owls shuffle on their perches, preening sleepily. One blinks out of sync, head bobbing, as if about to snore. We admire the owl, the monk says, because it knows how to wait. A low chime rings, then another, a third softer, like a yawn made of metal, and then the chanting begins. Not loud, not even sung, just murmured syllables, half-formed words, sounds that melt into one another like marshmallows in tea. What are they saying, you whisper? Nothing, the monk replies. These are the syllables of almost sleep. They mean precisely as much as you let them. You nod. Join in, you hum, you wave your feather, and you begin to feel. Slow, beautifully slow. Your thoughts, normally racing from one task to the next, now wander like children in oversized robes. A to-do list floats past. You wave at it. It drifts away, unbothered. You lie back. The stones are warm. The sky turns violet. A monk nearby begins to gently snore in rhythm with the chant. No, one corrects him. It becomes part of the song. The owls begin to respond not with screeches, but with tiny coos and soft, rhythmic clicks of their beaks. It's as if they, too, are participating not because they're compelled to, but because they understand the vibe. You begin to feel like you're falling asleep inside a poem. The monk leans closer. This tradition began when a monk once tried to outweight an owl during meditation, he says. Did he win? No one wins against an owl, but they fell asleep facing each other. And when they woke, both had shed something unnecessary. Laugh. Quietly. The chant softens. The sky deepens. One by one, monks begin to drift into slumber. Some curled beneath their robes, others in slings rigged between trees. You remain on the stone, eyes half closed, watching an owl scratch its beak against the sky. Do the owls always come, you ask? Only when we're slow enough to notice. Them. You close your eyes fully. The stone holds you. The feather rests across your chest. Your breath aligns with the hum of almost sleep, and somewhere nearby. An owl blinks once, twice, and forgets to stay awake. So do you. You wake to find that the world has rotated slightly to the left, or perhaps It's just your perspective. The light through your window spills diagonally across the floor in a way it didn't yesterday. Your sling tilts gently. The shadows curve. Even your breath seems to enter your lungs at a new angle. You sit up slowly. Something feels off, not wrong. ... Sidelong, as if you were meant to be dreaming still. But someone politely nudged you halfway back to consciousness, and then forgot. To finish the job, the red-sandaled monk is waiting at your door, arms crossed. You felt it, didn't you? He asks. You nod, rubbing your temple. What is it? He tilts his head perfectly sideways. Today you meet the one who woke that way and never stopped. He leads you out to the upper courtyard, toward a low structure nestled beside the spiral garden. It looks crooked not architecturally, but in mood. A building designed by someone who respected symmetry but just didn't trust it. Inside, the room leans gently to the left. The floor is sloped. The windows are set at angles. Even the shelves tilt slightly, as though every object here is mid-exhale. At the far end of the room, a monk reclines in a sling-hung knot. Vertically, not horizontally, but diagonally. Between two posts, he isn't sleeping. He's awake. Eyes open, head tilted like he's listening to a story, being whispered just off-center. This is the one who woke sideways, Brother Tummo, the red-sandaled. Monk bows low. You do the same, brother. Tummo smiles, then begins to speak. Slowly, deliberately. I was dreaming of a staircase, he says. That led nowhere, so I laid down beside it. When I woke, I could no longer walk straight. Physically. Ask existentially, he replies, without blinking. So you chose this? Angle it chose me. He waves vaguely toward the tilted room. Most people wake forward, a few backward. But every so often, someone wakes sideways into a version of themselves they weren't looking at directly. You step closer. His eyes are bright, but not sharp. More like marbles rolled gently across soft fabric. What does that feel like, you ask? Like knowing there's a door to your right, he says, but turning left to meet it anyway. The red-sandaled monk sits against the tilted wall, legs stretched casually. Tummo lives in this room, he explains, because he stopped answering questions in straight lines. You're allowed to do that? You ask. Tummo chuckles. Only after you realize that most answers come from the corners of things. Invites you to lie in a sling beside him, you do. At an angle, gravity shifts. Your blood pools, slightly along your ribs. The world tilts, just enough to remind you it's never been completely stable. What did you dream? You ask him. A hallway of doors, he replies. All of them open, but none face the same way. You breathe. The sling holds you oddly, but not unkindly. You feel your heart beating along a new axis. Did the others try to fix you? You ask. Of course. They offered exercises, prayers, very stern tea, and I kept leaning. He pauses. Eventually they realized I wasn't broken, just inclined. The room joins. You, creaking gently in approval. Do you still dream that way? He smiles. Now I only dream sideways when I want to see something I'd missed by looking head-on. You rest your head against the sling. The view from this angle reveals things the upright world never showed. New knots in the ceiling beams, a crack shaped like a sleeping cat light bending around a book titled Possibly True. The monk hands you a small compass. It spins gently, you ask. Where does this point? Not north, he says, but near it. He closes his eyes again. So do you. And you begin to wonder. How much of your life have you lived facing for Wardwan all along? Your answers were just slightly beautifully off to the side. Dusk arrives without ceremony. No bell, no procession, just a softening of light, as if the day has exhaled and doesn't expect to be thanked for it. You sit at the edge of the spiral garden, where shadows lean long and gentle across the stones. Your robe gathers around your legs like a memory folding in on itself. The wind smells like sleep, warm herbs, sun-warmed dust, and a fading trace of candle wax. The red-sandaled monk joins, you without sound. He carries something in his hands. Not a scroll. It's not a cup. Old iron and gently rusted around the edges. Its curve is elegant, like it was shaped by kindness rather than force. He offers it to you, palms open. For you, he says. I don't need it anymore, you reply.
Exactly.
You take it. It's lighter than expected. Still cool from the shade. Everyone who leaves receives a hook, he explains. Not as a tool, as a reminder. You nod. You don't need the metaphor spelled out. You've spent days suspended by ropes, by gravity, by silence, by ideas that loop in gentle spirals. The hook doesn't say, hold on, it says let go thoughtfully. You glance around the garden one last time. The dream murals shimmer. Faintly in the evening light, a monk drapes a sling between two fig trees and curls into it like punctuation. From somewhere in the distance, a soft dinged a bell without a clapper. You smile. It's strange, you say. I thought I'd feel heavier leaving, but I feel tilted, the monk offers. Exactly. Places something else into your hand. A small folded scrap of linen inside, the bat-shaped tea leaf. From days ago, pressed, dried, still slightly fragrant. It never truly left you, he says. You just weren't ready to carry it until now. You rise. No fanfare. No applause. The monastery does not mark your departure with a celebration, because this was never a performance. It was a quiet conversation. Between your weight and your willingness, the path beyond the garden opens softly between trees. No sign marks it. No map guides it. You begin to walk, barefoot, shoes long since surrendered to the sky. The soil is warm beneath your steps. You don't look back. Not because you're trying to be noble, but because you don't have to. This place is not behind you. It is folded gently into the curve of your memory now. The way a stone settles into the shape of the palm that held it. The red-sandaled monk calls out one last time. You know how to return. You pause. Do I? He smiles. Yes, just walk slowly enough that gravity notices. No. You laugh, then disappear into dusk. The trees sway slightly in your wake. The hook in your hand doesn't pull or press. It simply rests, like the silence you. Learn to trust in the stillness you now carry with you, everywhere. The world outside is louder than you remembered. Birds are confident again. The wind doesn't whisper, it announces. Even your footsteps on the road seem to carry a tone of unintended percussion. And yet, you don't resist it. You walk softly, like someone wearing a new body, not different in form but in posture, in pace. Your spine doesn't lean forward anymore. It listens downward. Your shoulders don't brace. They cradle. You walk through a world that hasn't changed, but there's still dust on the road. Yes, still distant barking dogs. Still clouds with too many opinions, but the way you move through them has shifted. You pass a small field of grass. The wind rustles it in waves. You pause not to reflect, not to philosophize, but because. It's beautiful, and because now you stop for beauty the way you used to stop for obligation. You reach the edge of a village. People are speaking, laughing, hurrying. They nod to you. You nod back. They don't know where you've been. They see a quiet figure, barefoot, with something like a smile tucked into the corners of your eyes. They don't notice the hook in your pocket, or the dried tea leaf you carry wrapped in linen, or the faint scent of lavender still in your sleeve. They don't hear the upside-down choir echoing faintly in your chest, but you do. You do, and that's enough. You pass by a window, catch your reflection. You pause. Your head tilts just slightly. The person looking back at you is someone who knows the weight of a dream that's not yet dreamed, the softness of a regret that no longer clings, the direction of gravity when it becomes a friend. You smile, not at the reflection, but at the fact that, for once, you don't need to ask where you're going. You already feel it pulled gently. Not forward, but inward. Later that night, as you settle beneath unfamiliar blankets, in a bed that feels almost too upright, you close your eyes and find yourself once again swaying softly, gently, as if still held by the monastery's air. You breathe in, and you hear a scroll unrolling. In your chest, you breathe out, and you feel something loosen in your spine. The darkness around you is not empty. It holds. Echoes. Laughter from the spiral staircase. the whisper of ink that floated up, the gentle protest of a bat being admired, and a voice soft, amused, upside down in spirit that says, "Rest easy, a traveler." The dream will tilt to meet you. You turn on your side. You face slightly away from the door and fall asleep not as someone who left a monastery, but as someone who brought it with them, one sling at a time, one question at a time, one silence at a time. End of script. Sweet dreams.